continues to be a fun, safe space to help navigate faith and life. And so that's sort of the wisdom that we have learned and gleaned, and then sort of how this looks like is our plans for this year. And I've talked with you a number about this, but not actually had to show you, not gotten the opportunity to show you the visual yet. Right, so in typical youth group nights, right, Sunday night we've got 5:30 to 7:30, and in that youth group night, if this is the structure of 5:30 to 7:30, we've had a few things. We've had fellowship, right? We do dinner like we did, some conversation starters. We have some community and fun like we just did. And then this section is when we typically transition into what is our spiritual formation section that involves things like teaching, worship, service, or small groups. And none of these things are bad, obviously, and we actually have been making a lot of changes to our programming over the last 4 years. But as I've said to some of you guys over phone calls, what we've been doing is leaning on one corner or one section a little bit more within this box. And then after about 6 weeks, we go, okay, well, why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we doing that? And what I've been more convinced of than ever before is what we just kind of need to do is break the box and really just kind of let them all breathe on their own, right? And what's going to stand at the core of that, and this is really the important part of our time tonight, what we want to be at the center of all that is mentoring relationships. One-on-one or 1 to 3, 1 to 4, it all depends on your student and their spiritual and relational needs. Why we kind of really want to bank on mentoring relationships, first and foremost, is that it has a proven track record. As you can see, I am the only adult that is not named Chamber here tonight. In the last 3 years, I've made easily over 70 phone calls, cold calls, of asking people to be youth group leaders, and I had 3 last year. In the 10 years I've been at Hillside, I have made more phone calls for Profession of Faith, and if you're not familiar with how we do Profession of Faith here, it's an 8-week one-on-one mentoring curriculum, and basically what a student does is they say, I would like to be mentored by this person. They give me 3 names, and then I go and ask those adults, hey, would you mind being the mentor for this person for Profession of Faith? 10 years I've been here, I've asked over 80 people, 1 person's told me no, because they were out of the country. There's something that happens when an adult in this congregation hears, yes, this young person has identified you as someone that they would like to learn about faith and life with, that 99% of the time they just say yes. So I'll talk to you about what the specifics are about that, but there's a proven track record with this where we don't have with sort of the model that we've been using. This is ultimately going to redefine a youth group volunteer, which is why we don't have any here tonight. It's going to be a slow but steady build. And a youth group volunteer, what we're going to say is more than anything else, above any other responsibility, is someone that meets 10 to 12 times individually or in a small group from September to May. And you might think that's not enough times. And students can vouch for me on this that have been a part of this program. On a perfect night, if they got all the attention that they needed, they would get maybe, Nathan, you've been here, and Drew, you've been here long enough, 5 to 7 minutes of individual one-on-one spiritual time at best on a perfect night. Extrapolate that over about 20 nights, you're going to get as much, you're going to already surpass the amount of individual spiritual care that your student's going to get in 2 to 3 of these meetings than you would all youth group year. And so being able to do that 10 to 12 times a year, I think, is something that can be a great gift. And what we've noticed with our Profession of Faith relationships is those actually have longer staying power than the youth group and youth group volunteer, small group leader model. So, and then here's the fun part, mentors and mentees are encouraged to come to every event together. One of the things we heard from your guys' calls is the chance that my student will come to an event if there's an individual ask increases by a ton. This way, I get to send the group text to the adults and say, hey, can you please all you guys reach out to your mentees and just say, hey, we're going to go to this worship night. Do you want to come with us? And conceivably, we could have anywhere from 20 to 30 volunteers. We could have 5 or we could have 30 in one night. Depends on how many students show up. Depends on how many come with their mentors.
Because Miss Katie was my son's DeAndre's mentor all the way from elementary. Mr. Bob was Lloyd's mentor. That's how we got to this church. 8 years ago.
Proving my point. That's what I love. So what we need from you, and that's on that to-do list. What we need from you, and some of you guys have already given me names, but go, now that your students are hearing it as well, I need 1 to 3 names of potential mentors. That's the first to-do list item. 1 to 3 names of people at Hillside, and it doesn't even necessarily need to be at Hillside, okay? We just want to make sure that if you, One of the biggest sort of realizations, or one of the biggest like aha moments I've had is, and I think it's because I've become a parent, I am not responsible for the discipleship of your students. And I tell you what, saying that out loud 3 years ago would have been something that I would have cringed at and thought like, oh gosh, I got to write emails and apologize. I'm not. That's your job. My job is to come alongside you guys and support you, and to supplement some of those things. And hopefully what Ron says is, my job, if I'm doing it right, is to introduce your kids to the people that if they run away, that they'll run away too. And you'll feel comfortable with it. Now, don't do that, any of you guys. But that's what we want to do, is we want to be able to say, hey, it's not about me, it's not about Chambers, it's about the church. And so if you have 1 to 3, because this is what I would do for profession of faith. If you got 1 to 3 names, great. Or 1 to 3 names, let's just be very real. There's been families that have left Hillside. Hillside looks like a very different church than it did 3 years ago. So if it's like, hey, people like this person who used to come to Hillside, any information that I can get, me and Chambers are going to start to get to going and calling and saying, hey, this student would like to meet with you 10 to 12 times a year. It would be helpful. I know guys and girls are different in this regard. If you already know, like, you know what, I don't want to do this one-on-one. I would really like to meet together with this friend or that friend or these 2 friends. That helps as well. Makes my job a little bit easier in terms of connecting. But if you can kind of identify the type of mentoring that you would like, and then the potential focuses. For some of them, it will be very intentional or very topically focused curriculum. For others, it will just be doing life together and chatting about stuff. But yeah, this is where we want to put the lion's share of our energy moving forward, is saying like, because, and here's the best part, is that even if you don't come to youth group, or if your student doesn't come to youth group, and I'm talking to you parents that aren't here tonight, not because I'm criticizing you, but hopefully for some relief and some good news. If your student doesn't come to youth group, or is like, it's just not fitting for me, at the very least we know we're doing something. At the very least, we know that we're saying we're still taking care of the students that are at our church, versus saying if you don't come to that box at this time, at this place with people you might not want to interact with, this isn't a place for you. That's not what a church is, and that's me failing at my job. And so really what we want to be able to say is confidently, we have tried to connect every single 9th through 12th grade student to an adult mentor at this church for 10 to 12 times a year. So if you can help me in any regard, that would be super helpful.